What's up, everybody? Every emotion you feel, every decision you make, it all comes down to a 3-pound brain and a bunch of cells firing. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how your biology runs the show. This is everything the College Board wants from Unit 1, so grab a pen. Stick with me to the very end, and I'll show you the single fastest way to lock all of this in before exam day. Let's get to it. First up, the oldest debate in psychology: nature versus nurture. Nature is your genes, the biology you were born with. Nurture is your environment, your experiences, your upbringing. Here's the answer. The exam wants. It's always both. Genes and environment constantly interact. Psychologists test this with twin studies and adoption studies. Identical twins share 100% of their genes, so when a trait shows up in both, even when they're raised apart, that points to strong genetic influence. This ties straight to the evolutionary perspective. Behaviors that helped our ancestors survive and reproduce got passed down through natural selection. Lock in the line. Nature loads the gun, nurture pulls the trigger. Now let's get specific about that biology. Here's the biology, and the exam wants the terms exact. Inside almost every cell you have chromosomes, made of DNA. Short segments of that DNA are your genes, the instructions for building you. Your complete set of those instructions is your genome. Now the word the College Board loves to test: heritability. It describes how much of the variation in a trait across a whole group is due to genes. But watch the trap. Heritability applies to groups, not individuals, and it never means a trait is 100% genetic. Take temperament, your baseline emotional style. It shows up early and leans heavily on biology, but your environment still shapes how it grows. Now the nervous system, and it's all about splitting it in two. First, the central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, the command center. Second, the peripheral nervous system, every nerve outside that, wiring your body to the command center. The peripheral splits again. The somatic nervous system controls your voluntary muscles. The autonomic nervous system runs the automatic stuff, heartbeat and digestion. And the autonomic has two settings you must know. Sympathetic is fight or flight. It speeds you up in an emergency. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. It calms you back down afterward. Keep zooming in, because next we hit the single cell behind all of it. Here it is. The neuron, the single cell behind every thought you've ever had. Follow the signal's path, because the exam tests it in order. Dendrites receive incoming messages. The cell body, also called the soma, adds those signals up and decides whether to fire. The axon is the long cable that carries the signal away. Wrapped around many axons is the myelin sheath, a fatty layer that speeds the signal up, like insulation on a wire. At the very end, the terminal buttons release chemical messengers. Memory hook. Dendrites detect, the axon carries it away. And don't forget the glial cells, the support staff that feed, insulate, and protect your neurons. So how does this thing actually fire? At rest, the neuron sits at its resting potential, slightly negative on the inside, just waiting. When enough signals arrive and push it past the threshold, it fires an action potential, a brief electrical impulse that shoots all the way down the axon. Here's the idea the exam absolutely loves. Firing is all or none. The neuron either fires at full strength, or it doesn't fire at all. No halfway, just like flushing a toilet. A stronger stimulus doesn't make a bigger spike, it just makes the neuron fire more often. And right after firing comes a brief reset, the refractory period, before it can fire again. So what happens when that signal reaches the end? When the action potential reaches the end, the neuron releases neurotransmitters across a tiny gap, the synapse, over to the next neuron. These are the chemicals you have to know cold. Dopamine. Reward, motivation, and movement. Too little is linked to Parkinson's disease. Serotonin. Mood, sleep, and appetite. Low levels are linked to depression. Acetylcholine. Muscle movement and memory, linked to Alzheimer's. GABA is the brakes, the main inhibitory transmitter that calms the brain down. Glutamate is the gas, the main excitatory one. Endorphins reduce pain and boost pleasure. Any leftover neurotransmitter gets vacuumed back up in a process called reuptake. Drugs act right here too. Agonists turn the signal up, antagonists block it and shut it down. Now let's go bigger, to the brain itself. The main event, the brain, and we're going from the bottom up. The brainstem keeps you alive. The medulla controls heartbeat and breathing. Just above it, the cerebellum handles balance and coordinated movement. Next, the limbic system, your emotional core. The amygdala for fear and aggression. The hippocampus for forming new memories. The hypothalamus for hunger, thirst, and body temperature. The thalamus, the sensory switchboard that routes almost every sense except smell. On top of it all sits the cerebral cortex, your wrinkled thinking cap, split into 4 lobes. Frontal for decisions, planning, and personality. Parietal for touch. Occipital, way in the back, for vision. Temporal for hearing. Damage that frontal lobe and you get the famous case of Phineas Gage, a classic the exam comes back to. Your cortex has 2 halves, the left and right hemispheres, joined by a thick band of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum that lets the 2 sides talk. In most people, the left hemisphere specializes in language, and that's called lateralization. 2 language areas to lock in. Broca's area, in the frontal lobe, controls speech production. Wernicke's area, in the temporal lobe, handles understanding language. Now here's where it gets wild. In split brain patients, whose corpus callosum was surgically cut to treat severe epilepsy, the 2 hemispheres can no longer share information. That led to the famous experiments where, quite literally, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Quick but important. The endocrine system. This is your body's slower chemical communication network. Instead of fast electrical signals, it uses hormones released straight into your bloodstream. The pituitary gland is the master gland, and it takes its orders from the hypothalamus, which links your brain right to your hormones. The adrenal glands, sitting on top of your kidneys, dump adrenaline during stress, backing up that fight or flight response from earlier. Here's the contrast the exam wants. The nervous system is fast and electrical, the endocrine system is slower, but its effects last a lot longer. Good news. Your brain is not fixed. Plasticity is the brain's ability to rewire and reorganize itself, especially after damage or during new learning. That's exactly why some stroke patients slowly recover lost abilities as healthy regions take over the work. So how do scientists study a living brain? 3 tools. The EEG records electrical brainwaves through the scalp, and it's fantastic for studying sleep. The fMRI tracks blood flow to show which areas light up during a specific task. And lesion studies look at what stops working when a region is damaged or removed. Different tools, different jobs. Speaking of sleep, let's finish there. Finally, sleep. Every night you cycle through stages roughly every 90 minutes. You drift from light N1 sleep into N2 with its little bursts called sleep spindles, down into deep N3 slow wave sleep where your body does most of its physical repair. Then you flip into REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. In REM, your brain is buzzing, your eyes dart around, you dream vividly, and your muscles go limp, basically paralyzed so you don't act your dreams out. Skip your REM, and your memory and mood take a real hit. So why do we dream? 3 theories. Freud said dreams are wish fulfillment. Information processing theory says dreaming helps you store memories. Activation synthesis theory says dreams are just your brain making sense of random activity. And watch for the disorders: insomnia, narcolepsy, and sleep apnea. And that's the whole of Unit 1. Nature and nurture, genetics, the nervous system, the neuron, neural firing, neurotransmitters, the brain, the 2 hemispheres, the endocrine system, plasticity, and sleep. You covered every bit of it. But here's the honest truth, and this is that fastest way I promised. Watching a video is not the same as knowing this stuff. To lock it in, you have to practice with real questions. So head to AIM5 and drill Unit 1 for free, with instant feedback that shows you exactly where the points are earned. The link is right below this video. Now go get that 5, and I'll see you in Unit 2.